I just want to present a little story. About 10 years ago, I was living my superficial life as chairman of psychiatry of a large health network, and I was my job, I was my family, I was the car I drove. I thought I was happy, and I was very busy, and I complained a lot about all the things that were going on and the little things that bothered me. And then I was a runner and a weightlifter. I was doing everything right. And then I became ill, and I had a catastrophic illness. And for 2 years, I couldn't walk, I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything. And during those 2 years, things changed pretty fast. And the meaning of my life changed, and all of that superficiality went away. And in fact, all of what I thought was my life wasn't really my life. And what happened was that I found that the real me was actually somebody inside that wasn't really the person that I thought I was. And with that cracking through, I found out a lot about me, and I became a stronger person. I became a much happier person. And that person actually became somebody who wanted to, instead of being just a doctor who wanted to be powerful and chief and all that sort of stuff, I became somebody who wanted to help people. And I became somebody much stronger, more resilient. And I think that actually I did bounce back to where I was, and I became even better because my reason for doing what I did was infinitely better. And one of the things that frustrates me when I listen to people talk about this is that you can talk about theories, but it all comes, in my opinion, having gone through something like this, it all comes from inside, because we all have our what I call our bounded selves that we present to the outside. But when something traumatic happens and that superficial self goes away and we have to face what's in here, that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where purpose comes from, and meaning comes from, and that's what I think.
Thank you very much. When we move to the next question, I just want to use that as an example to illustrate reality and research. I agree totally with my friend Maddi. I'm really disgusted with all the credibility tests used by public psychologists. Because I don't mean like a purpose, what means that you really have to know the construct, give example construct before you come up with credibility tests, generate all kind of research, but we really don't know how that applies to real life. So in the next question is, for example, what are the indicators of receiving? This is a fair question, right? You can measure symptom depression or measure well-being, but that is the point. Your testimony shows that is a fundamental transformation of what is purpose, priority. Yeah, we have purpose, but superficial purpose, not deeper purpose. So we really have to look at an example of our well-being. Now, the most famous test is the Dina's life. Now, one of my clients, she lost her husband, she lost her job. She's a miserable woman. But when you do the test, she discovered everything. But that is either denial or wishful thinking. She don't want to look sad. I want to be happy. She want to waiting. It's a wishful thinking dream. For me, I'm a cancer survivor. I don't have university. I'm a friend. I'm struggling. Do research with some money. Run a conference with some money. If you ask my life, sometimes I'm not happy with it. You hear my story tonight. My life, my past life, not my past life. My life as a whole, all my circumstances, are not a good life, right? I don't want anyone to be mine. So I will rate maybe middle, okay? But if you rate me in terms of meaning, in terms of existential well-being, I'm not very high. So you can use the life psychological scale. Actually, with psychological circumstances, rather than with life. So that test, which a more reliable test, I will totally my friend Todd. You got to work contact, right? A person who in deep shape, okay? Rate the well-being scale high. That score has more meaning than a person has any going with. Right? A good well-being scale. Right? So without context, it's going to have no meaning. So that's why I'm asking you, what would be the best indicator of resilience? Maybe a multiple indicator.
I agree with Paul. I also agree with Dmitry. I want to reaffirm the importance of your sharing this with your personal case study. Basically, what happened to you was so traumatic that you can't overlook it. Now, people who don't have that kind of thing have stresses on an everyday basis, but they can overlook them. And if they think they don't want their happiness interfered with, sometimes they do just overlook them. And the trouble with that is that they don't develop as they could develop if they recognize that even little things can be stressful, and that's an important part of learning from your life. In your case, you couldn't afford it anymore, and look, it actually made a positive difference.
When I don't have an answer as far as how we actually assess resilience in that way, I think part of the answer might be with Chris's character strengths, because if you can go through these experiences and it develops character strengths, and a number of those character strengths would be ones that would benefit other people, would assess in self-transcendence. That would be part of the answer, is including measures of character strengths in some sense.
For better or for worse, my role in positive psychology is to have quick and dirty measures. I guess I'm known for quick and dirty measures. And I get a lot of inquiries. You have a quick and dirty QED, that's what we call it. A QED measure of resilience. And I always respond, resilience with respect to what? And that's, I think, what your story shows. You are doing better in some ways, I dare say not in all possible ways. And so maybe the mistake is that this is an answer to your question, that maybe there's no single indicator of resilience, because resilience is a noun or an adjective or whatever the heck it is, but it can apply to different domains of functioning, and that's how I look at it. I was in a car accident. I'm lucky, I haven't had too many bad things in my life, but in a car accident once, and I was jumpy and I couldn't sleep, and on and on and on, but I came back with respect to my mood, and on and on and on, and I'm still an overly cautious driver. I'm a bad driver, because I always expect, so am I resilient or not? The answer is it depends. When I'm in the car, I'm not. When he's the kind of so I'm done.
I'll just make a brief comment. I don't think I have an answer to your question of what's the best indicator of resilience, but I think one important indicator is whether the person's able to, I guess I would say, stretch themselves enough to encompass the suffering, so that they actually accept the suffering as a part of their life rather than just trying to get away and trying to bounce back.
A couple of words about resilience situations. You see, in fact, it's in really serious, severe cases of traumas and tragedies. You are not coming back to the point, you're not striving to come back to the point where you were. You're going to some different point, to some higher point or farther point. Yes, and this is what you want, this is what your awareness is trying to. Because in fact, the changes, the positive changes that occur in those situations, they are rooted in some dialectical structure of understanding. So there was some thesis, some positive state of affairs that faced some antithesis, just its negation of the current state of affairs. And as Hegel taught us well, this position of two uncompatible essences can be resolved if you live up to a new level of understanding, if you build some more encompassing structure of understanding. And this is a necessary condition to make sense of this question. Just to find a higher scheme and to live up to an understanding of some higher truths that you may have.
It seems like there ought to be a way to do that without trauma, right? I mean, in that, why does it take that? It's fascinating to me when we've collected narratives from people who have experienced different life-changing circumstances, and there's no question that there are these individuals who have this insight that I know that my life is somebody else's worst case scenario, and what they don't know is that when the worst thing that you ever could imagine happens to you, there is this funny sense of freedom to then actually do what you really want to do and to be yourself, and in a way that you couldn't before. And the question is, well, why couldn't you do it before? And it's so odd that so much of our energies in the in-between times is so invested in things that don't really matter to us. And it takes, it takes these life-changing experiences in order to realize that, it's why can't we just do that anyway, right? Why can't we take that lesson and actually change ourselves? That's my thing.
Laura's point's a good one, so I'll just affirm that, just to make it a nice panel. I'm just going to a couple bullet points, because it's typical of these panels where your head bounces all over the place. In terms of the assessment issues, so crude assessments, questionnaires, my typical response is everyone who criticizes that the measures aren't appropriate, please email me, Todd Kashdan, Gmail, with a more creative idea. And I think you don't make careers out of destroying things. You have to balance with creating things. And everyone who criticizes, every single leader says, everything you've done before. And the ratio of the number of criticisms of people who actually offer a creative idea are almost 3 billion to 1 when it comes to these things. It's disturbing, it's annoying, but that's part of the price of being a researcher. I'll be talking about this more when I give my talk about if you're going to criticize, do something different, and then have some thick skin. Let someone criticize you, and that's how science progresses. We're doing this. Character strength should have been the first measure. Should have been done exactly how it was measured. A very simple measure, and then if you kind of nailed it, then we get to a little more sophisticated measures. We're doing this. In terms of resilience, I really worry. I think Laura and I were talking about this at dinner last night because it was late at night, so we were battling a lot. I really worry about post-traumatic growth. I really worry about this construct in psychology, is that the pressure that it puts on someone, potentially, to saying, wow, I really hope that now they may not say this, they'll see it in the nonverbals. I really hope I'm going to end up in that group. What can you do to make sure that I end up in that group? Because I know I'm going to be rejected, I'm going to feel lonely, I'm going to lose friends, I'm going to lose my parents. Hopefully my kids will die before I will. Tragic things will happen to me. What can I do to make sure I'm in this post-traumatic group? And I do not think we do enough caveats about this work. It's very disconcerting to me. I made a real big point when I write about this to make tons of caveats, not 8-point aerial font context like in a car advertisement, but very clearly, listen, we're just describing a group of people, and these are things that we know that kind of increase likelihood. You are not to blame for whatever group you get into. Now listen, people will not hear that message. They're going to hear that of, you're just trying to say that because you don't think that group, the post-traumatic growth group. So we have to be very careful about this stuff, really putting that on a pedestal, putting resilience lower, and then putting post-traumatic stress conditions as the lowest rung for doing this. And I would say that we have great variability in reactions to traumas and stressors. And as Laura likes to reiterate, and it's something I agree with wholeheartedly, is we put trauma on a pedestal. And we forget just being rejected. I mean, we know that if some stranger walks past you on the street, and there's no one else on that sidewalk except for the two of you, and they do not acknowledge your existence, they do not they look away. For whatever reason, maybe they think you're so attractive that you would not look back at them. Whatever the reason is, you walk past them, they ignore you. This happens also for both sides of the equation. Your sense of meaning like is a huge precipitous momentary drop. Your self-esteem takes a precipitous momentary drop. We've experienced this. You're probably now recalling an event where this happened to you. But if someone could just walk through me, like I don't even matter if they're doing this. These events is the shoals of everyday life. And the idea is that we save community, we save growth for these paramount events that we say, we, the field, say are more important. Divorce and death of a child is more important. That sense of meaninglessness and anime that comes from walking around in a foreign city when you come to conferences, no one talking to you. You're in the lobby at a conference, and you're not with anybody. Everyone else is with somebody. There's this weird disconnect you feel. We need to be studying everyday processes, which is why I was really excited about Laura's talk last night. And which I think we need to study resilience on an everyday basis. You guys.
Claude,
Connecting people.
Can I say a word? No? Well, in response to this, it isn't that it's only trauma that can lead you to grow. It isn't that at all. There are individual differences in people. If you're the kind of person who can see clearly the everyday stresses that are in your life, you can grow through them too. So one thing we have to do, it's not just a matter of what's the point of just, what can we learn from trauma, growth in trauma. You want to look at growth in everyday life, and what you need to do is look at individual differences. That's why I've always been involved in personality research. You need to look at individual differences. Some people, see, one thing we've noticed, for example, is that there's a positive relationship between hardiness and scores on stress tests. So in other words, hardiness people, the higher your hardiness, the better you are at perceiving the everyday stresses in your life. And if you can perceive them accurately rather than deny and avoid them, you can grow through them too.
Sure, it's not trauma that accounts for growth, but rather understanding. And trauma is something that reveals the insufficiency of your actual understanding, that challenges you